Imagine thinking you've destroyed everything with one mistake. I did. But when a billionaire decides you're his unfinished business, karma becomes a ruthless game of cat and mouse. What happens when the man you betrayed can't let you go, even after swearing to hate you forever? Hey viewers, if you love stories of revenge, unexpected twists, and relationships that blur the lines between love and obsession, smash that like button and subscribe now. This story will shock you. Some stories begin with a whisper, but mine started with a scream. I was never supposed to fall for someone like Marcus Hardwick, a self-made billionaire with ice in his veins and fire in his ambition. But love, or what I thought was love, has a way of making the impossible seem inevitable. We met at a charity gala in downtown Chicago, where he stood out like a perfectly tailored storm, commanding, intense, impossible to ignore. I was working as an event coordinator, fresh out of a string of dead-end jobs and broken dreams. When our eyes met, it felt like the universe had finally decided to rewrite my entire existence. Marcus wasn't just wealthy, he was a force of nature, and I was about to be swept away. Our relationship was a whirlwind of luxury and passion. Private jets, penthouse suites, and nights that seemed to belong in a movie. But beneath the glamour, I was hiding a secret that would become the poison in our perfect world. The betrayal wasn't just a moment. It was a calculated decision that would destroy everything we had built. It happened during a critical business negotiation. Marcus was on the verge of closing the biggest deal of his career, a merger that would change the landscape of tech investments. I knew things, confidential information that could make or break his entire empire. In a moment of weakness, of perceived desperation, I made a choice that would haunt me forever. I leaked sensitive information to his biggest competitor, thinking I could secure my own future. The fallout was instantaneous and devastating. Marcus found out within hours. The look in his eyes, a mixture of hatred, betrayal, and absolute destruction, is something I'll never forget. "You're dead to me," he said, his voice so cold it could freeze hell itself. "I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will destroy everything you've ever loved." And he did. My career, my reputation, my entire world collapsed like a house of cards. Every connection, every opportunity, gone. The man I thought loved me became my worst nightmare, a vengeful god determined to erase my existence. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a story that would consume us both in ways I could never have imagined. Survival becomes an art form when you've lost everything. I learned to fade into the background, to become invisible in a city that once celebrated my every move. Chicago became a maze of memories and missed opportunities. Each street corner, a reminder of what I'd lost. I took whatever jobs I could, waitressing, freelance event planning, anything to keep my head above water. But Marcus Hardwick wasn't the type of man to simply walk away. His revenge was a slow, calculated dance. And I was about to become his unwilling partner. It started with small things, a job offer that seemed too good to be true, and it was, a consulting gig at a startup that mysteriously dissolved my contract the moment I signed. Then came the apartment. Just as I was about to be evicted, a mysterious benefactor bought the building and offered me a position as a property manager. I knew his fingerprints were everywhere, but I couldn't prove anything. The psychological warfare was precise. Every time I thought I'd found my footing, something would shift. Potential clients would ghost me mid-conversation. Networking connections would suddenly become unavailable. It was like an invisible hand was constantly reshaping my world, keeping me just on the edge of desperation. One night, I saw him, not directly, but a reflection in a store window. Marcus, watching me from across the street, his eyes never wavering. It was a ghost sighting, a reminder that he was always there, always present. I realized then that this wasn't just about destruction. This was something deeper, more personal. The most terrifying part wasn't the professional sabotage. It was the constant feeling of being watched, of knowing that every breath, every move, was somehow part of his intricate plan. Marcus had transformed from a lover to a predator, and I was trapped in his hunting ground. I began to wonder, was this merely revenge? Or was something else driving him? The man I knew was calculated, brilliant, not prone to endless pursuit without a greater purpose. Something didn't add up, and I was determined to figure out what game he was really playing. Little did I know, the next move would change everything. It was a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day that becomes extraordinary in a heartbeat. I was walking through Millennium Park, my guard momentarily down, when I felt the presence before I saw him. Marcus materialized like a phantom, cutting through the crowded pathway with the same intensity that had always defined him. "We need to talk," he said. Not a request, a declaration. The world around us seemed to blur, pedestrians fading into a distant background. Up close, he was different. Not the pristine businessman I remembered, but someone rougher, more raw. There was a vulnerability beneath his calculated exterior that I'd never seen before. He didn't wait for my response. "You think you know why I've been following you," Marcus began, his voice a low, controlled burn. "But you have no idea what's really happening." His eyes, those same eyes that had once looked at me with passion, now filled with a complex mixture of anger and something else I couldn't quite define. The confrontation wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a screaming match or a dramatic takedown. Instead, it was a surgical dissection of our past, of the betrayal, of the consequences that extended far beyond what I had understood. Marcus revealed layers of information that made my previous understanding of our relationship look like a child's simplistic drawing. "The information you leaked," he said, "it was just the beginning of something much larger." His hands were steady, his gaze unblinking. "You were a piece in a game you never understood." Suddenly, our past wasn't just about personal betrayal. There were hints of something bigger: corporate espionage, hidden agendas, a complexity that made my original act of betrayal seem almost trivial. The power dynamic shifted with each word he spoke. I was no longer just the woman who had wronged him. I was potentially something more. "I'm not here for revenge," Marcus finally said, a statement that contradicted everything that had happened over the past years. "I'm here because you're the only one who can help me now." The park around us continued its normal rhythm. Children playing, tourists walking, the city breathing its constant urban song. But between us, something had fundamentally changed. The rules of our twisted game were about to be rewritten completely. Some truths are like earthquakes. They don't just shake your world, they completely remake it. Marcus's revelation came in pieces, like a puzzle I never knew existed, transforming everything I thought I understood about our past, about myself. The leaked information wasn't just about a business deal. It was a carefully orchestrated trap that I had unknowingly walked into and potentially saved Marcus's life in the process. He explained how the merger I'd seemingly sabotaged was actually a front for a massive corporate conspiracy involving international money laundering, political manipulation, and a network of corruption that ran deeper than I could have imagined. "You think you betrayed me," Marcus said, his voice low and intense, "but you actually prevented something much worse from happening." He pulled out a series of documents, encrypted files, photographs that painted a picture far more complex than simple corporate rivalry. My act of desperation had been a critical intervention I never knew I was making. The irony was brutal. The very moment I thought I had destroyed everything, I had potentially saved Marcus, and maybe even prevented a global financial scandal that could have toppled governments. My betrayal wasn't a betrayal at all. It was a lifeline. But Marcus wasn't a hero, and I wasn't a victim. We were something else entirely. Two players in a game much larger than ourselves, manipulated by forces we were only beginning to understand. The years of revenge, the psychological warfare, the constant cat-and-mouse game, it had all been a carefully constructed narrative to protect me, to keep me close while investigating the larger conspiracy. "They're still looking for us," Marcus said, spreading out the documents on the table between us. "And now, we're the only ones who can stop them." I realized then that our relationship had never been simple. Not when we were together, not during the betrayal, and certainly not now. We were bound together by something far more complicated than love or hatred. We were survivors, witnesses to a truth that could destroy everything. The world we knew was about to change, and we were the only ones who could change it. Karma works in ways no one can predict. The man I once thought was my greatest enemy became my only ally. The only person who truly understood the weight of what we'd been through. Marcus and I weren't lovers anymore. We weren't even friends. We were survivors, bound by a secret that could destroy us or save everything. The next months were a blur of encrypted communications, careful movements, and calculated risks. We dismantled the network piece by piece, watching as corrupt politicians fell, corporate empires crumbled, and a web of global manipulation slowly unraveled. Every document, every piece of evidence was a weapon, and we were precision surgeons cutting away the rot. I learned that betrayal is never simple. My original act, leaking those documents, wasn't a moment of weakness. It was an unconscious act of survival, an instinctive response to a danger I couldn't yet comprehend. Marcus had seen that before I ever did. His pursuit wasn't revenge, it was protection. The world we exposed changed everything. Massive corporations fell, political dynasties crumbled. The kind of systemic corruption most people only whisper about was dragged into the harsh light of day. And through it all, Marcus and I maintained a connection that defied every conventional definition of relationship. We were never going back to what we were, but we had become something else. Partners, survivors, two people who understood the true cost of truth, the luxury, the passion, the betrayal. It all seemed like a distant dream compared to the reality we now navigated. In the end, I realized that some stories don't have clean endings. Some relationships can't be defined by love or hate, by trust or betrayal. We were something else entirely, two people who had seen behind the curtain and survived. As I sit here now, writing this, I know our story isn't over. The network we exposed won't stay down forever. There are always more layers, more secrets waiting to be uncovered. But for now, we've won. And in this moment, that's enough. Some might call it karma, I call it justice. Wow, what a journey. If this story blew your mind, hit that like button, share with someone who loves drama, and subscribe to hear more unbelievable true stories. Drop a comment below. You won't believe what happens next.